If you've seen a couple of my previous videos, you know that drakengard is one of my favorite game series of all time. It's the prequel series to Nier, and despite how standalone and separate Nier seems to be from drakengard on the surface, the more you dive into the lore and what goes on behind the scenes in these games, the more you learn that these series have quite a tight bond between each other. Heck, one of the most important characters in Nier as a franchise first showed their face in drakengard and was never shown again until the Nier Automata anime a while back. And it was only through emulation where I could personally explore the bond between these series firsthand. This experience of mine was how I came to the conclusion and belief that if you're a gamer of just about any kind, you very much should have a PC of some sort for the purpose of emulation, whether you find emulation as a concept, ethical or moral or not. Let's talk about this today, shall we? So, my dear viewers, have you ever sat down and thought about what gaming as a hobby or as an industry would be like if emulation wasn't a thing? No RPCS3, no Dolphin, no nothing. Only relying on services like Xbox backwards compatibility, Nintendo Switch Online, PS Now, and remasters and ports to keep your beloved childhood treasures alive and available. Does that thought put a smile on your face? Does it make you feel all happy and joyful inside? I highly doubt it unless you're a Nintendo fan. Now let me ask you this, why wouldn't you like being in a world of relying on companies to keep your old games available? The answer is pretty obvious. You simply can't trust the company to have your best interest in mind. I know that's a no-brainer, but I can't help but occasionally think about the fact that there's people out there that simply choose to just rely on companies to keep their old libraries available. And I just have to ask myself, why? Okay, I know why. It's because they're casuals and anything dealing with a computer fries their brain, and half of them still think touching an emulator is gonna get them locked up or something. But even if that may be the case, my question for them is, don't they have a game that they loved as a child but can't really play today on new systems? Ain't they tired of having to wait for a game that they love show up in the backwards compatibility service that they have? Wouldn't it be so much better to not have to worry about whether or not you'll be able to play your new favorite Nintendo game in, let's say, 20 years? I mean, we all know how Nintendo works. They don't care about keeping the old games available unless there's a way to monetize it. Nintendo Switch Online and their $60 remasters are proof of that. Heck, even when they are bringing their older titles to modern platforms, you can't even trust them to do it right. A while back, Nintendo dropped Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a collection of classic 3D Mario games from Super Mario 64 to Super Mario Galaxy. And for some reason, they left out Mario Galaxy 2 from this collection, meaning that unless they someday bring Wii games to Nintendo Switch Online, the game's not playable on anything modern unless you have an old Wii U laying around somewhere. So, today is Friday, right? Today is Friday. The Nintendo Direct is still going as we speak, right? Okay. 5 hours ago, at like 3 o'clock, I finished this video. I finished it. I finished it, right? Okay, so, I mean, I just finished this video, right? I finished it. At 3 o'clock. I was so happy to get it. I was so happy to have it out and all that stuff. I really was. What do you mean Nintendo decided to drop Mario Galaxy 2? What do you mean Nintendo decided to drop Mario Galaxy 2? The day before this video was about to come out. Screw me, I guess, man. I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy that it'll be preserved and all that stuff. I'm happy. I really am. But like, a day before the video is about to come out. Like, come on, man. Why? Man. Okay. Back to the video. And I don't think paying Joe Bob on eBay $100 or however much the console costs in the future in order to play an almost 20-year-old game is reasonable in the slightest. Who's to guarantee you that Donkey Kong Bonanza won't share the same fate as Mario Galaxy 2 in a few decades? I know that's not a problem for today since the game just came out, but someday it's gonna be as old as Super Mario 64 is today. And our only surefire way to know that it'll be playable when the time comes is through emulation. It's scenarios and situations like these that made me believe more and more that no matter if you're somebody that only really barely picks up a controller every other day and only play an hour or two at best, or if you're somebody that stays in front of a screen all day and all night, you're somebody that will benefit immensely from having your own way to preserve the games that you love and not letting the company have authority over whether or not you can play them decades from now without paying them extra, or whether or not you can play them at all. Being able to play your games for many years down the line isn't and will never be a privilege, no matter how much companies will love you to believe. My dear viewers, this is a right. You're right. Always remember that. I'm not talking to the people that obviously know this kind of stuff, but to the people that either A, still see emulation in a negative light for one reason or another, or B, just don't know how to download and operate an emulator. We can talk about both sides to this, starting with folks that see emulation in a negative light. Now those that do this, Nintendo fans, do so because they think that emulation takes away a lot of potential sales from the company they support, which, to be fair, is I guess understandable. More sales means more money that goes to newer and better projects, and since you pay for a product, it's only fair that everybody else pay for it as well. But I want you to think about it this way. People that wait for a game's ROM to drop so they can pirate it 9 times out of 10 weren't gonna buy the game anyway. So can you really call it a lost sale for the creators of the game? I'm not saying it's right, but I see folks that don't like emulation all the time use the piracy argument a lot, and it feels kinda disingenuous. Now, do I think that there's no lost sales of a game at all when it's pirated through emulation? No. And am I excusing piracy? No, of course not. What I'm saying is that I don't think that it's as big of a thing as people think. And honestly, I think this is the case for piracy of any type of media as a whole. For example, most people that pirate anime are never gonna actually buy what they pirate. That's just how it works. Pirates, at least in my eye, never really intend to buy what they steal. Unless they pirate it with the intention of buying the product later, which, I mean, they're buying it at the end of the day, so no harm, no foul, I guess? And even though there's people that use emulation in not so good ways, that doesn't mean that emulation as a whole or as a concept is bad. With every good thing in life, there's of course gonna be a few people to not do right with it. And does that make that good thing bad? In this specific case, no. I think that all the good that emulation does for us as an industry far outweighs whatever negative things you can imagine it doing. Again, I'm not saying that pirating games that are still available is right. It's not. But I'd rather have some bad apples pirating games than not having a way to preserve our games any day of the week. And so should you. That's all I really have to say about that. Now, moving on to the folks that simply don't know how to emulate games. All you need is the emulator, the BIOS or latest firmware of the system the emulator emulates if it requires it, and the ROMs of the games themselves. For the emulator itself, you can get it from its website. Just type in, for example, PS3 emulator and it'll be the first thing you see. You go through the emulator setup process and you go from there. For the console's BIOS or firmware, it's heavily advised to dump the file from your actual console and use that. But of course, there is a way to get your hands on one online. Whichever way you choose doesn't really matter to me. I'm not in charge of your morals. The same goes for the ROMs. The legal way to use emulators is to dump your own files from your physical or digital copies of games that you own. But of course, they can just be found online. Do what you desire. It has nothing to do with me. I won't show you where to find such things, but I have faith that you're capable of finding them on your own. The same goes for a game's updates or DLC. Once that's done, all you need to do is map your controller, set up a few basic graphic settings, and in no time at all, you'll be playing drakengard 3 in 8K at 120 FPS until the end of time. You won't have to worry about it someday not being able to work on new hardware or Square taking it from you for whatever reason. Ain't that so nice? And it's easy as pie. There's no reason at all to not at the very least give it a try. If you're scared of winding up with a virus on your computer, just check Reddit for places to get things. I know Reddit has a bit of a bad rep with things, but when it comes to emulation, the folks there will show you where you can find whatever you need. You really don't need to be some tech wizard to get into emulation. I say this because I see so many people say that they don't know how to do it and they don't want to wind up with a virus. And I can sympathize with those folks. But I want to be the one to say that it's not hard at all. Once you have things set up in the beginning, it's mostly just plug and play. And if you need a tutorial or a guide for a specific emulator, there's an abundance of them on YouTube. You just need to look them up. It's all there for you if you simply just look for it. You got this. Listen, I care about emulation. I really do. And not just about emulation, but preservation as a whole. In a world where both digital and sadly physical ownership of media is dying out, it's more important than ever to preserve as much as we can so we never have to worry about ever losing it. Leaving a game or movie or a song or any kind of media's fate in a corporation's hands is something that scares the crap out of me, honestly. I very much fear a timeline where any of my favorite media somehow practically becomes lost media because a company decided to kill it someday because it's not profitable enough anymore, or decide to take it off stores and sell it garbage new version of it for a higher price than the original went for. And I also want y'all to remember that every single game on Nintendo Switch Online is part of a subscription service. You don't own any of them. So when Nintendo eventually pulls the plug on the service, all the games you ever played on it will simply vanish, and you won't be able to play those games again until the next time Nintendo makes them available, whenever that is. This goes for not only Nintendo Switch Online, but also PS Now. This might not be an issue now since the services are very much still alive today, but at some point they're gonna go away, and what then? No one knows when, how, or even if the games on the services will be available again. Emulation is for this. As long as you have the emulator and the files for the game, the whole world can come tumbling down and you'll still be able to play Sonic Riders in glorious 4K. And I can't come up with anything much better than that. In conclusion, this video isn't really to tell you how good emulation is. It's more really to put it out there that I think that no matter how you feel about emulation, you should have a device capable of running all your favorite older titles. If you're not going to preserve your games, who will? I may not be here as much as I should, but the things I talk to y'all about on here are stuff I have quite a bit of passion for, and preservation is very much one of them. And I say this because not only as a content creator, but also as a person that loves nothing more than playing video games, watching anime, and listening to music just like you. I really want you and anybody else that stumbles across this video to understand that preserving the things that you love and cherish will only get more important as the days, months, and years go by. As physical media is dying out and the actual ownership of things that you pay for nowadays is becoming a thing of the past. I really wish we didn't have to worry about this kind of stuff and we could all just have our media available without resorting to our own ways of preservation ourselves, but that's just not the world we live in. It sucks, but hey, at least we have some ways to combat it. Anyways, that's all I really have in mind to say about this topic, for now at least. Now, I don't really know how to end this video, so I'll just say whatever comes to mind while writing this. Persona 4 Revival got announced a while ago and it looks pretty cool. Seeing Inaba in HD is quite an experience that I should talk about at some point, but that's for another day. If you like this video, give it a like, and if you want to hear more of me, subscribe, and I hope you enjoy yourself in my little corner of the internet. I'll be back later, but until then, I wish you all a good day or a good night. See you.